We ask out of respect for our speaker to please remain seated until he has finished. It is my great pleasure this evening to introduce our speaker, Paulie N.
Hi, my name is Paulie. I'm an alcoholic. And glad you guys are here. And welcome to the newcomers. Dustin, Megan, Ben, right? Some people will tell you they're the most important person in the room. I don't think that. I think I am. And there's a little bit of truth to that. You're really important. The newcomers is one of the most important things in the program. But I got to make my sobriety first. And so I feel I'm the most important guy in the room, because if I don't come here, the life that I'm going to tell you about today wouldn't exist. If I don't come to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous and share my experience and listen to you share yours and do the steps, then I'm going to end up drunk. And if I end up drunk, I lose everything. My sobriety date is September 1st, 2016, like you just heard, and I'm just grateful to be here. And I get to talk about three things that I love, Alcoholics Anonymous, my family, and me. And I think that's backwards. It's me, my family, Alcoholics Anonymous. I have more work to do. But, everything I'm going to say tonight, you can trust. I hope you can trust that I mean it. And I say that because I came into this podium a lot of times. I've had a lot of years between drinks in the past. I called them sober, but I really wasn't sober. I came to Alcoholics Anonymous because I thought Alcoholics Anonymous would teach me how not to drink. And that was my problem. Drinking was my problem. I was otherwise a normal guy. I took good care of my family. I was a good provider. And I just drank too much. And if I could just stop drinking too much, my life would be better. And I would come to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I would make my amends, and I would rebuild my life that I had destroyed through my drinking. And then I really wouldn't need Alcoholics Anonymous anymore because, I wasn't drinking. And, I never really delved farther. I would tell you I did the steps, but I didn't really do them. I didn't do them the way they're supposed to be done. And eventually I got drunk. And the last time I was sober, I was 10 years between drinks. But I was miserable. I was stark raving sober. Stark raving sober. What? John wants to tell part of my story. Come on up, John. Dick. Now John got me off track. You're not allowed. You need to go sit over there. Time out. Time out, Bryson. My family's watching, so they're on the screen. And so, hi, Jenny. Marcus and Tim say hi. And, my family is involved in Alcoholics Anonymous. My oldest granddaughter, Kayla, and my wife would help me make coffee for this meeting. When we were at Light and Life Church, I was a coffee maker for about a year and a half. I've actually spoken at this meeting before, and I was a little over a year sober. And my story is going to be a lot different, hopefully, because I remember when I first got sober, and I had like 15 months, I think, when I spoke at this meeting before, and I talked about a lot of doom and gloom, and doom and gloom is what I knew, and I remember my family all showed up, they're showing up on Zoom, and at the end of the meeting, my youngest granddaughter was crying, and I remember she was crying because I was talking about holding a gun to my head and trying to will myself to pull the trigger. And that was about the best I could do back then. I could tell you that my life was better than it was because I wasn't holding a gun to my head anymore. I wasn't getting my grandson taken away at Disneyland because I was drunk. I wasn't having my then 13-year-old granddaughter wake me up on the couch because she had to tell me that that she thinks I went to the bathroom on the couch. I hadn't had any of those things happen to me for 15 months, and that was great. But I hadn't had the experience of the spiritual awakening and the realignment of my life that I've had since then in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'll tell you a little bit about my story, my drinking. I hope I don't concentrate on it too much, because I always try to get sober before the end of the meeting. So I can tell you what my life is like now, because that's what's really important. And there's a few newcomers here, and there's a lot of new people here, that I know. And I remember when I first started coming to Alcoholics Anonymous, I really didn't want to get sober. I came because my mother begged me, and I didn't really want to be here, but I was coming, to make her happy. And the first thing I heard at a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous was a kid, probably about my age, mid-20s, and I think he might have been 6 months sober, and he was up here talking about getting a girlfriend. I got a girlfriend now, and I got my own apartment, and I got a driver's license, and I have furniture. And I remember thinking, I want those things, right? Because I had lost all of that at 26 years old. The girl, my high school sweetheart that I had been with for 10 years, finally said, I can't take it anymore, I'm done. I was barely making rent on my apartment. I was driving a shitbox car, and I was spending just about every dime I made on alcohol and drugs. And I won't talk about drugs too much. Drugs are a part of my story. I didn't do any of the drugs that a lot of you guys are here for today, but I did dabble. And but my drinking, my partying, whatever you want to call it, always started with alcohol and ended with alcohol. Alcohol was my crutch, and I used that crutch constantly. I couldn't survive without drinking. I didn't feel right if I wasn't a little drunk. I grew up. I'm not going to tell you guys this so you feel sorry for me, because I felt sorry for myself long enough. But I grew up. I was different than other kids. I had chronic eczema. I was covered from head to toe, and dry skin, and cracks, and bleeding, and weeping sores, and I had it from birth, and I was allergic to everything. I mean, I didn't eat chocolate till I was 14 years old. I didn't eat an egg till I was 16, and I just had a lot of shit going on, and I was fine. I think I was fine with all that until I went to elementary school. And in the first grade, I realized how different I was from the other kids, and they let me know how different I was from them. And so I became very, very introverted. I didn't talk. If I went to school functions, I was the wallflower. All through elementary school, I had a few good friends from my neighborhood. I was comfortable in my neighborhood. I came from a tight-knit neighborhood. I come from an Irish Catholic background. I was lower middle class. My parents loved me. They did the best they could with what was going on with me, and they made me feel as comfortable as I could. But I can remember just being tortured at school by other kids, and if I drew attention to myself, I might get picked on, so I tried not to draw any attention to myself. I was undersized, I was underweight, and I was an easy target. And I tell you that because that created in me that feeling of not good enough, not comfortable. I didn't look good. I was just a mess. I threw away. My mother was pissed at me when I was about 18. I went through her family albums, and I took out every picture of myself from the age of 15 down and threw them away, because I always had shit. I was always broken out. I was disgusted. I couldn't look at it. And, she cried when she found out I did it. And I was like, Mom, I'm sorry, but I just can't stand to look at those pictures. I was like that until I found alcohol. And I remember I can't tell you if it was my first drink. It definitely wasn't. I used to hang out with my buddies, and we drink beer. And we, go back where I'm from, there's woods everywhere, There's woods. We would just go, everybody would get a six-pack. We'd find someone to buy a six-pack at 15 years old. And we'd go out and we'd light a bonfire or something, and everyone would drink. And I really didn't like beer. So I would do what we called Larrying. Sorry if your name is Larry. But Larrying is when you take a beer and when no one's looking, you dump some of it out, right? You dump some of it out because you really don't want to drink it, but you know, you want to be cool, right? So I Larried a lot of beers. So, you know, I dumped a lot of beers and so it would look like I was drinking. And, you know, I spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house, and my grandmother was bedridden by the time I was 16. So I used to go up and help out on the weekends and help my grandfather and take care of my grandmother. And my grandfather was a hard-working, hard-fighting, hard-living Irishman. He was a great grandfather. He made me, I treat my grandchildren today the way my grandparents taught, you know, there it is. I get tongue-tied. Treated. Thank you, Patrick. The way my grandparents treated me. And that was with a lot of love and a lot of kindness. And but I would sit there and I would watch TV with my grandfather, and every once in a while he would get up and he'd go out in the garage. You know, go out in the garage. Didn't say nothing. And by the end of the night, he'd go out the garage 3 or 4 or 5, 6 times. And by the end of the night, he'd say, "I'm going to go to bed, Michael." They called me Michael. "I'm going to go to bed, Michael. I'll see you in the morning." And I would watch him stagger down the hallway. So I finally figured there's something in that garage. There's something up, right? So I went on a little treasure hunt. And he was slick, you know. He had his bottle of Canadian Mist hidden behind the dryer, behind a curtain inside the stud wall. And I found that bottle of Canadian Mist, and I said, this is what he's been doing. I don't think I ever drank hard liquor before that. And so I went in, I took that bottle, and I went into the kitchen. You know, once my grandparents went to bed, they didn't get up, and I knew that. So I went into the kitchen, and my grandfather, I remember the frosted highball glass. You know, it's like a 10-ounce glass. It's all pretty, you know. I took that highball glass, and I filled that sucker with Canadian Mist, you know. And, you know, I want to change the subject, but, you know, there were 2 things in my father's house and in my grandparents' house. There was beer and there was whiskey, you know. So I never knew anything else. Beer and whiskey is what I knew. Beer and whiskey is what I drank because that's what my parents and my grandparents drank, so that's what I could steal from. And but this was my first glass of whiskey, and I put a good 8 ounces in that sucker, and I chugged it down, about half of it, and I tried to keep myself from throwing up over the sink, and then I chugged the other half of it. So I did 8 ounces of whiskey in a couple of seconds, and then I got that feeling, right? That feeling that went through me. It started burning in my chest, and I felt it down to my toes. And all of a sudden, all that fear and that anxiety and everything that I constantly felt, it went away, right? So for the next couple of years, I watched my grandmother every Saturday night. And I would go up to my grandfather's house, and he would go to bed, and I would fill that highball glass, and I would chug it down. This time I could do the whole thing, right? I would chug down 8 or 10 ounces of whiskey, and I would run. I would rinse the glass out, and I would run, and I would dive onto the couch, and I would just lay there, and I would get that feeling, right? It was like a hug. I would get that feeling all the way down to my toes, and all my troubles would go away. And from that point on, I never drank alcohol for any other reason but the effect, you know. I drank to get drunk. I drank to make those feelings of inadequacy and not living up to expectations. All that went away. Alcohol helped me go from the wallflower to the life of the party. I could talk to girls when I drank, right? By the end of the night, if you were my friend and you were drinking with me, I was chasing your girlfriend to the house trying to grab her ass. And you had to choose between kicking my ass or reasoning with me. But those were the 2 choices because that's what I did, right? I had no self-control at all when I drank. I was afraid of nothing. I took chances when I was drunk, chances I would never take when I was sober. You know, and this went on for a long time, and my drinking got out of control. And I have not had a drink in front of my family since I was about 23 years old. Because if they saw me take a drink, they would get upset. So I did all my drinking away from my family. My friends got tired of me. They, you know, I had good friends. They always watched out for me. But they would become my babysitters on Friday and Saturday nights. And I would get to a point where they would not let me get up. They would sit me in a corner of the bar. They would sit in front of me so I couldn't get out of the chair. And they would buy me whatever drinks I want. And they would escort me to the bathroom. Because I could get in trouble from the table to the bathroom and no problem. I would start a fight with somebody. I would mouth off. You know, I would do something that would end the party for somebody. And so they would restrain me, you know. And I was okay with that because I got free drinks after that. I didn't have to buy any drinks. They, you know, what do you want? What do you want, dude? We'll get it free. You just sit right there. And, you know, alcohol really tore my life up. And I felt so sorry for myself for so long, right? You know, this poor kid. I'm a poor kid. You know, I had this eczema. Kids used to pick on me. And even as a young adult, I still would break out. And I still have allergies to this day that knock me on my ass. I don't have any food allergies anymore. I can have pets now. I couldn't have a pet till I was like 18. But I had alcohol, and alcohol was all I needed, right? Alcohol was my cure. You know, alcohol was the only thing that made me feel good. And I used it. I used it constantly. And I swore I would never drink on the job. I swore I would never, you know, do a lot of things that I ended up doing. I didn't drink on the job a lot, but I drank. I would come to work so fucked up. Excuse me. I would come to work so drunk from the night before that I shouldn't have been driving. I should have got a DUI on the way to work. I had a boss that looked the other way. And I came to him one day and I apologized. I said, Bill, you know, I'm sorry. I called in sick on Monday. And, you know, it was a joke because they were drinkers. You know, I got the bottle flu. I can't work today. And so I came to him one day and I apologized. And I said, you know, sorry, Bill, I'll let you down again. And he said, you know, Mike, you know, again, my name's Mike. From where I'm from. My name is Paulie. It's confusing. It's part of my problem. But he said, you know, Mike, you're a great electrician. You're a good worker. You're a hard worker. I just know that you're good for one Monday a month of not coming to work. It's okay. We're all drinkers. It's okay. So that was, now, for me, that was permission. From that day on, I always made sure I missed at least one Monday a month because it was acceptable, right? So that's what I did, and they taught me how to drink. I can tell you that one of the greatest days of my life, this is how sad this is, one of the greatest days of my life, I was working on a construction site. I was working in the trenches. It's January. It's cold. It's snowing, and I'm not yet a licensed electrician, so I get to do all the shit work. So me and this other non-electrician, we're in these trenches, and I got a little half scruffy beard because I'm not old enough to grow a full beard yet. And I got this thing going on, and I'm down in the trenches, and it was for a heavy equipment shop that my boss was a friend of mine. And so I'm surrounded by, you know, these big leather face. This guy had about 7 DUIs, and he looked like it. He had scars all over his face. He's this leather-faced construction dude. I'm this fresh-faced 23-year-old, you know, and he comes out and he says, he looks at us, and we're in there, and I looked up at him, and I guess I had icicles and snot, frozen snot coming out of my nose, and he's like, oh my God, get out of that hole, come on inside. And they bring me inside, and there's all these burly construction dudes standing in a circle, and me and this other kid are standing there, and they said, come on, warm up, and they start passing around a bottle of Jim Beam. Right? And they all take a good, you know, nice little pug. They pass it around, and it came to the kid I was working with, and he took a sip, and you know, and he passes it to me, and I tipped that bottle up, and I took at least 3 or 4 big gulps, and I put it down, and there were about 10 guys standing in this circle, and all these old dudes are looking at me like, they're just. And then they all started cheering. Ah, yeah, you know. And just like it says, I had arrived. Right? I was standing in a circle of men, and I could drink like a man. And there were 3 things I was good at. Right? Fucking up. Screwing up. Sorry, Oscar. Sorry. Screwing up. Working. And drinking. And I wore those things. Oh, no, that's wrong. Not screwing up. I was good at rage. I was a rageaholic, right? I was a hard worker, and I was a good drinker. and I could drink like a man, and that was what kept me going, you know. And I can remember the one time my mother hit me. You know, I'm probably in my mid-20s, and I'm drunk, and she's trying to reason with me, you know, and she's like, you know, you got to stop this, and you're killing me. And I remember saying, you know, Ma, you're right. You know, I can't bear to see you like this anymore. I'm going to pack my tools in my car, and I'm just going to leave, because there's only one thing I'm good at, and that's being an electrician, and I don't want to see you, I don't want to hurt you anymore, so I'm just going to pack my car up and leave. And I won't hurt you anymore if you can't see it. And she slapped the shit out of me. You know, you selfish bastard. You know, and but I meant it. You know, and fast forward, you know, I got sober a couple of times. I started to get sober a couple of times. It became just being dry. My life, I'm a great example of what not to do in Alcoholics Anonymous when I first came to Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, I'd get my shit back. You know, I drank so much. I think I drank so much at such a young age that I developed an allergy to alcohol. And my mother used to say that to me. My mother went to Alcoholics Anonymous before me, and she was not an alcoholic. She went to come see what's going on here so she could come convince me to go. And she would say things to me like, honey, you have an allergy. And I'm like, come on, Ma. You know, I don't break out in hives, right? I don't stop breathing. That's a cop-out. I don't have an allergy. Today, I believe that I have an allergy to alcohol, and I have an obsession of the mind, and what that obsession does is it tells me this time it's going to be different. You know, I haven't drank for like close to 10 years. Surely I must not be an alcoholic, right? I think I could drink that was the last one. I think I could drink just beer. And I remember talking to my wife and saying, I think I could drink just beer. And I remember what she said. She said, you're a grown man. Right? You're a grown man. I am not going to tell you what to do, but I think it's a bad idea. Right? So I started drinking. Beer. I had to go talk to my granddaughter and get her okay. You know, I want to drink beer, Kayla. You know, I think it'll be okay. And she said the same thing. I think it's a bad idea, Pa. You know? And I liken my drinking to Russian roulette. I didn't lose control every time I drank. You know, I always think of it about putting a bullet in a gun and spinning the chamber, right? You know, click, I'm okay. I know I went out and I had a few drinks and I went home and I went to work the next day. I go out the next time, I put the gun in my head, click, no problem. I'm drinking a few drinks, I go home, might get a little drunk, might make a little bit of an ass of myself, but I don't go on a tear, right? Eventually, if you play Russian roulette as much as I did, you're going to catch a bullet. And I would catch a bullet. And when I caught that bullet, I would get that craving that I just couldn't stop. And it didn't matter what happened. It didn't matter if I had my grandchildren with me. It didn't matter if my wife was around. It just didn't matter. I drank and I couldn't stop. And that's just the way it was. And it wasn't until I could totally stop that my life started to get better. And taking the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, the way, you know, kind of the way they're written, you know, and I lost my train of thought. I got that deer in the headlight look, and I'm just so happy to be where I am today. You know, I started talking about my wife and my kids, and you know, they had to watch me. You know, I had to have my daughters tell me. You know, I've always thought I was super grandpa, right? Super pa. I've always spoiled my grandkids. I love them to death. You know, no matter how much I was drinking, I loved my grandchildren. You know, I would pick them up from school. I would take them this. I would do this with them. I would do that with them. I think, because that's what my grandparents did with me, right? So that's what I'm supposed to do. And my daughters had to come and tell me, one in particular had to tell me, you can't just come by and pick up the kids anymore. I don't know what you're going to be like. I can't trust you. And I'm taking you off the list at school. You can't just go to school and pick them up anymore. You can see the kids as much as you want, as long as mom's with you, you know. And I remember feeling so hurt, you know, and as much as it hurt, I remember when she left, I told my wife she's a good mom because that's the right thing, because I can't be trusted, right? I cannot be trusted with the lives of my grandchildren. I'm the guy, you know, sitting here in a room of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, Prescott's a lot safer today because we're in here, right? And I was that guy on the road, drunk, driving around thinking he could handle his shit, right? That I'm lucky I got one DUI. You know, I was talking to Brittany earlier about it. You know, I got one DUI at 51 years old. I probably, you know, 4 out of 7 days a week, I could have got a DUI driving. You know, and I'm lucky I never had to go to prison for killing somebody or hurting somebody behind the wheel of an automobile because I was that guy, right? If I needed to get more booze, I was getting in the car and getting more booze. Right? That's just, you know, there's nothing would stop me. And so I drove off a cliff September 1st, 2016. I really didn't drive off a cliff. I drove through a guardrail and down a ravine. And it had been after the Disneyland thing I kind of alluded to. And I just couldn't get over it. I couldn't get over that I was this worthless, out of control person that couldn't even care for his grandchildren. And I just was taking pills that the doctor gave me to try to calm my mind so I wouldn't have to drink. And I got hooked on those pills. And I was drinking on top of them. And I was totally insane. And the thing about when you're insane, you don't know you're insane. I thought I was normal, right? And so my family is watching this spiral. My employer is watching this spiral. You know, what few friends I have left are watching this spiral. And I'm thinking I'm fine, right? Thinking I'm fine. That day, I told my wife, I want to put my truck in the shop. I need to drive yours. And she said, no, you're not, right? You are not driving, because I had just wrecked 3 vehicles in 2 months, right? I had... You know, actually, no, I'm sorry. This was September 1st. So I had wrecked 2 vehicles in 2 months, and I was about to wreck the third, and it might have been her car if she said it was okay. Right? So I'm driving home. I go through the guardrail. I go down 75 feet into a ravine. The seatbelt is hanging me. I'm 45 minutes down there before the cops or first responders can get to me. I'm pretty much dead when they get there. I'm battered. I'm broken. I'm asphyxiated from the seatbelt, for lack of a better word. I'm not a doctor, but my nursing friend is telling me what I was. Thank you, Tim. But I spent 7 weeks in the hospital, 3 of it in an induced coma. I got pumped with a lot of morphine. I was out of it. I have no idea, but I do remember when I woke up. I'm going to get sober real soon. I remember when I woke up 3 weeks later. You know, they would wake me up for 10 minutes a day, I guess. And I think it was my wife that was talking to me. And they would wake me up every day for 10 minutes. They would pull me out of this coma because they said it was important to tell me who I was and where I was. So I would come out of this haze, and either it was a nurse or my wife, I still don't know, would say, your name is Paul Naughton, you've been in a terrible car accident, and you're at John C. Lincoln Hospital. And they would put me back. And I thought of it, I felt like I was in a drawer. Right? I was in a drawer. And they would open the drawer, and they would go, your name is Paul Naughton, you're at John C. Lincoln Hospital, you've been in a terrible accident, and then they would close me back in the door. And in my head, before I went out again, in my head, because I can't talk, right? I got a trach, and I'm tied to the bed because I keep pulling my shit out and thrashing in the bed. And I'm going in my head, screw you. I have not had a car accident. You're doing some sort of medical testing on me. How did this happen? Right? I'm freaking out. And I'm out. And then I'm out again. And the next day we do go through the same thing. The first conscious moment I had, my brother was there. You know, it's because my family was told by the nurse, if you want to say goodbye, you probably should come out here because we don't know if he's going to make it. So my whole family flew out. And one day I come to, and there's my little brother. And they had been telling him that I get the usual, he might never walk again. He might never talk again. He might be brain damaged. We don't know what's going on with him until he wakes up. So I wake up, and there's my little brother sitting next to me. And he says, "Hey, buddy, how you doing?" And I remember sitting there and looking at him, and he's like, "Look, the Patriots are on TV. There's a football game on. I'm a big football fan." And I remember looking at the TV for about a couple minutes, and I'm thinking to myself, when did they change football? Because this is nothing what I remember. I didn't know how football was played. I really was like, what the hell's going on? And I look at my brother, and he's like, "How you doing?" And my big thing is flipping the bird, It's like a family thing. So my brother says, "How you doing?" And I give it all my effort, and I give him the bird, right? And he freaks out. He starts clapping. "Oh, my God. He's going to be okay, Jenny." He runs to my wife. "Jenny, it's going to be okay." He just flipped me off, right? That was a sign to my brother that I was still there. So I came back home. I had a lot of physical therapy to do. I had been going to meetings prior to that accident. I had got like 90 days and got screwed up again. And so I knew some of the people that are in this room tonight, right? And people had thought they were going to go to my funeral. I got a couple of people that are like, we got to go help out his family and probably go to his funeral. And then, like everybody else that comes through these rooms, eventually we kind of forget about you. We love you while you're here, but after you're gone, you're just a memory. And I don't want to be just a memory. So I remember talking to my wife in the kitchen, and I'm broken, and I can't drive. And I said to her, "Jenny, will you drive me to the meeting? I'll get a ride home." And she was tired. And she said in the nicest way, she didn't say it mean. She said, "Why, Paulie? Why do you want to go to a meeting?" And I'm like, "Well, because I got to go to a meeting. I'm an alcoholic." She's like, "Alcoholics Anonymous does not work for you. You've tried it over and over again. It just doesn't work. We'll figure something else out. You don't have to go to meetings anymore." And I remember I had waited my whole life to hear that. I had waited for my mother to say it. I had been waiting, 20 years for my wife, 19 years for my wife to say it. Suddenly she said, "You don't have to go to meetings anymore." And it scared the shit out of me. I was petrified standing there in my kitchen table, because I knew the only hope for me, if there was any hope, was in these rooms. I knew that. It's the only thing I did know. So that was the day I said, I'm going to go to meetings. I'm going to do whatever my sponsor tells me. And I'm going to take the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, the way they're written in this book, to the fullest of my ability. Because if I don't, I'm going to die. And even though I put a gun to my head in a hotel room after a week and a half of being drunk, I really don't want to die. I just don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to go through this anymore. I don't want to see the pain in my family's eyes. I don't want to feel like a piece of dirt. I don't want to feel incompetent and incapable anymore. And I definitely don't want to feel that guilt, remorse, and shame, right? And when I first came here, I used to really identify with a part of Bill's story. And some of it, I say it enough that a few people in here are going to know. But there's a quote in Bill's story that said, "No words can tell of the loneliness and despair I found in that bitter morass of self-pity. Quicksand stretched around me in all directions. I had met my match. I had been overwhelmed." And I know that feeling because I used to sit in my backyard, and I'd smoke a half a pack of cigarettes without moving, and I would just get that 1,000-yard stare. How the hell did I end up here? How the hell did it? I've got a wife inside there that loves me. I've got great daughters. I've got a son-in-law that I love. I've got beautiful grandchildren. How the hell did I end up here? Right? Because I did things on my own. I did things the way I thought they should be did. I'm a grown-ass man, and I don't need you to tell me how to live. That's how I live my life. I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. I did what I was told. I went to meetings. I got commitments. I sponsored someone for the first time. All the years in Alcoholics Anonymous, I never took the time to sponsor anybody, right? Because I was too busy. I started sponsoring guys. I called my sponsor every day. Took a lot of commitments. I became part of the whole that's Alcoholics Anonymous. Right? It says in the promises, right? We'll have a host of friends. I might misquote something. I'm going to read something later because I don't want to misquote it. But we'll have a host of friends. I know what it means to say we'll be rocketed into the fourth dimension of existence today. Right? I know what it is to have a higher power, even though I don't know what that is. Right? I know there's something bigger than me in these rooms and in life. It's not the God I grew up with, but it's still something. Right? I do a lot of, I had a, here, I'll read it now. We'll get it over with. And the spiritual experience, and this is how I feel today, right? Just to tell you. The term spiritual experience and spiritual awakening are used many times in this book, which, upon careful reading, shows that the personality change sufficient to bring about recovery from alcoholism has manifested itself among us in many different forms. And I feel that manifestation has happened with me, right? I know how to handle situations that used to baffle me, like mowing the lawn, right? Between having a drink and mowing the lawn. I know what to do. That used to baffle me. What do? I really want to drink, but the lawn has to get mowed. I'll do both, right? Further on, it says we have the educational variety of spiritual awakening, right? Because they develop slowly over a period of time. I think that's what happened with me. Some guys get the bright light. Some guys get God talking to them. I got it gradually over a period of time. My life changed. My outlook, my perception of life changed. My outlook of life changed. And I don't know how that happened. And sometimes I say, if I knew which step here granted me that peace, I would do just that step because I'm lazy, right? So it's good that I don't know how it happened or when it happened. I just did what it's written down. And one day I realized my life is amazing, right? And I always say, I would drive to work. I finally got a job after 11 months of physical therapy. And I got this job, and I would drive to work on the way to, and I would get this feeling, like, what the hell is this? I was always on Robert Road. John knows what I'm talking about. It was always on Robert Road. It was always between Hondo and 89. I would get this feeling of well-being. And I'd be like, what the hell is this? Right? And it would last sometimes that stretch of road. And then as days progressed, it would last, I got about halfway to work. And I realized that was, kind of like a peace and contentment that I'd never felt before in my life. And I remember thinking, I used to drink for this feeling. This peace that I'm feeling, this loss of worry and anxiety and this feeling of well-being, I've never experienced this before without a drink. And I got it. Fleeting. I got it for 5 minutes, 2 minutes. And then as time went on, I would get it for an hour, right? And then as time went on, I would get it for half a day. And sometimes I get it, I'll get up, I got my grandkids that spend a lot of time at my house. And I'll get up in the middle of the night, because I'm old and I got to pee a lot. And I'll get up in the middle of the night to take a leak. And, I got my 2 grandsons up in their rooms upstairs sleeping. And my granddaughters have spent the night, and they're asleep on the 2 couches in the living room. And I walk through to take a leak, and I look over, and there they are sleeping. And I look around, and I'm like, my wife's in the room sleeping. I've got this house I can afford. It's mortgaged, but I can afford it. And I got my granddaughters sleeping on the couch, and I got my grandsons upstairs, and I got this job that I like. How the hell did this happen? Right? I have this happy life. Better than I am happier today than I ever was as a child. I am happier today than I ever was with a girl, with a family. When I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, my wife was a nag, right? She was a nag. My daughters, they were pains in the asses. My grandchildren, no matter how much I loved them, they were spoiled. They always wanted something from me, right? Everybody wants from me. Everybody's taken from me, right? That was my life, And I got to a point in Alcoholics Anonymous when all of a sudden my wife is the most amazing woman in the world. And she's beautiful. And she treats me like a king. And I've been learning to treat her like a queen, for lack of a better word. I don't want to sound corny. And I have these daughters that love me. and show me all sorts of affection. We don't leave my house without a hug and a kiss and an I love you, right? My grandchildren don't leave the house or go to bed or leave the room without saying I love you, right? But these spoiled people that were living in my house are all of a sudden perfect, right? And I realized they were always that way. The only thing that changed was me, right? I changed. And now I see them for what they are. And I don't have the rage. And I don't have, man, I'll tell you what, I'm a control freak. You think John's a control freak? I'm a control freak. John is a control freak, but I'm a control freak too. And, I would tell myself I was doing it out of love, right? I've got a daughter that lives with me now. Hi, Tasha. And I got a daughter that lives with me now. And I destroyed that relationship. I destroyed the relationship with my daughter because I was trying to put her round peg in my square hole, right? I was trying to make her into what I thought she should be, and I was pushing her, and I was lecturing her, and I was beating her up, but I was helping her, right? I was helping her financially. I was helping her, and you're gonna accept my help. There's conditions, right? And you're gonna do what I say. And by the time she escaped my house, right? She escaped my house with her son. Our relationship was damaged, And today, she's living with me again, and I have a relationship with her that I haven't had with her since she was a teenager, right? I have a relationship with my daughter that I love. I don't ride her. She doesn't bitch at me. It's crazy, right? And my other daughter, Brandy, has always been there for me. She's like my best friend, and she always has been. And she was the one that had to tell me I couldn't pick up my kids anymore. And she's crying while she's telling me, right? Because she knows it's going to hurt, but she has to do what's right for her kids. And my family is so behind me. I've never had the problem that I've heard in Alcoholics Anonymous where you say to your wife or your family, I can't do that, I got to go to a meeting. And they go, come on, right? My wife goes, have a good time. See you later, right? Do you want me to go with you? Because if it's an open meeting, maybe I'll hang out with you. And sometimes she does, my life was and how God is good and I'm a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous and I was full of shit, right? Because that's what you wanted to hear from me, and I told you what you wanted to hear. Today I can tell you that I haven't suffered from anxiety or I haven't gone into a rage. I've had things that bother me, but I don't have to go into a rage. I was going to quit my job. I love my job. I was going to quit my job because they didn't give me the raise I expected, right? So I'm going to walk away from this thing, and I had to actually leave work, and I told my boss, if I don't leave right now, I'm going to paint myself in a corner. I'm really mad. And he said, go, get out of here, right? Because the old me would have said, screw you, screw this job. I'm not worth $2 or $3 more an hour. I'll go make that money somewhere else, right? Those were the kind of things I did, those knee-jerk reactions that I've learned from you guys, my sponsors, my friends, how to not react to life, how to take things in stride, think before you speak. I never learned that. Nobody ever taught me that before I came here this time, right? Greg's doing this to me, but I got sober, right? And, I came here to Alcoholics Anonymous totally hopeless. I wanted to die because I saw no other option other than tearing my family apart. And today I couldn't be happier to be alive. I couldn't be happier to be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. The friends I have today are unbelievable. My family today is unbelievable. I love them with all my heart. And I hope that if you're new and I've said something that you hear and you can identify with, because the identification is the thing, not the comparison. And thanks for letting me share, man. Appreciate it. taking a sip.
That's amazing. Dang. Good job. Let's thank our speaker once again. Outstanding.